So on this channel I've watched some videos about the German language before, interesting German words and so on, and yeah, it's always an interesting subject for me to learn about. Today I'm watching this, it's called How Learning German Changed the Way I Think. So interested to see this, especially for myself, having learned to speak another language, which is Malaysian, Bahasa Melayu. It really changed the way I think. It was just the process of learning a language as an adult, seeing the comparison between words, see how words originate and so on. It changed the way I think for sure. Interested to see it in this with regards to German specifically. So yeah, tell me what you think about this. Let's watch.
So I was never one of those people that found learning languages easy. I was never one of those gifted people that just seemed to pick them up without much effort. In fact, I would go so far as to say that there were times when I hated learning German. The misunderstandings, the humiliations, it's been a long, humbling process. But something strange happened over time. German didn't just change how I speak, it started to change how I think. And I'm not the only one, there's research on this, and even some of the greatest writers in English, people like Samuel Beckett or T.S. Eliot, they deliberately stepped out of their native tongue to see the world differently. Now, the only foreign languages I've learned to fluency have been Mandarin Chinese, which I've pretty much all but forgotten now, and German. Language learning was something that I came to later in life, so as an adult, and I started learning them out of necessity, not really curiosity, because I've lived in China and I currently live in Germany, so it was something that, I sort of needed to do.
Yeah, that's the same story for me. Like, I learned it as an adult, not really through necessity, because here in Malaysia, a lot of people speak English, so you can get by very easily speaking English. But for me, it was like, I just wanted to because I live here long term. I have plans to stay here longer, or at the time I did. And I just thought it'd be good to do, but when I did learn it, it was so much more than just learning the language. As I said, I feel like it really activated a different part of my brain. When I was at school, we learned a little bit of German, a little bit of French, but it wasn't really too intense or too serious at the time. I wish, in hindsight, I'd put more effort into learning at least one of those and becoming more fluent in one of those, but I had other subjects I wanted to learn more rather than the language at that time. But it's definitely something I recommend as an adult, even if it's for fun, even if it's not just to learn the language itself, it's just to activate your brain. And I really feel like it's such a enjoyable experience. Even if you learn one word a day, or you learn a lot but you only take in 1 or 2 words a day, it's still better than nothing for me. But yeah, let's watch.
And when I moved to Germany and started trying to learn German, Chinese just kept cropping up, and it really took a few months for me to recalibrate my brain. When you move to a foreign country, you will find that suddenly the simplest things become exhausting. Going shopping, filling out forms, talking to the neighbors. Every small task became a mirror showing me how limited I was. And sometimes it can be kind of exciting, but a lot of the time it was just embarrassing. But underneath all that friction, something else was starting. My brain was beginning to rewire itself. German is rigid, structured, and demands clarity. It forces you to think before you speak, to hold a sentence in your head and only release it once the pieces are in the right order. And that mental clarity, that discipline, started to affect how I thought in general. In English, we're fluent in vagueness. There's just so much left open to interpretation or understood through context. In German, you have to commit. There's actually a study from the University of Chicago that shows when people make decisions in a second language, they're less emotionally biased and more rational. And it's called the foreign language effect. So it's not just anecdotal. Thinking in a second language creates mental distance, and that distance gives you perspective. I noticed it most in moments of conflict. I became slower, less reactive, more structured. Partly because I was calmer, but also because the language required it. It's an ever-evolving process of refinement, but I've found myself being able to articulate my thoughts and feelings more accurately with fewer words, and that is partly because of the new concepts and paradigms that German has given me. With any language, there are words and phrases which just don't translate. The strange, beautiful compound words that say what English never quite could, like Fremdschämen, the shame you feel on behalf of someone else, which is actually kind of crept into the English language because we don't have an equivalent for this. Or something like Torschlusspanik, the fear of closing doors as you age. And that's the thing, like language shapes attention. If you don't have a word for something, you often just don't even notice it. And the more you expose yourself to a language, the more these hidden ideas start to reveal themselves, which is exactly why I've been spending more time watching German films and series, not just passively, but really engaging with them. There's this really cool platform called Lingopie, who are kindly sponsoring this video, where you can actually watch a massive selection of your favorite shows and films with the ability to make use of incredible language learning tools. You can turn on German or English or both at the same time. Whenever I hit a word I don't know, I just click it. There's an instant translation and it's saved to my vocab list so I can review it later for further study. What I like most is how flexible it is. I slow down the audio when I need to, follow along with the full transcript on the side, and if there's a sentence that's tricky, I just loop it until it clicks. Lingopie has over 3,000 native shows and movies, but not only that, you can actually use its Netflix or Disney Plus extensions to enhance your learning. You can choose from German cult classics like Dark or Cleo, or dramas like Oktoberfest, Beer and Blood, and if reality TV is your thing, they've also got you covered. There's comedy, there's cooking, the list really goes on. And whether you're living in Germany or not, this is the perfect way to gain exposure to the language, get accustomed to different accents and dialects, to expand your vocabulary and build up your personal bank of common phrases. Oh, and just in case German isn't enough for you, you will also have access to 11 more languages with Lingopie, including French, Spanish, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Italian, and many more. So click the link in the description below to start your 7-day free trial today.
I know that's just like an advert, but that's actually such an amazing tool. Like, you see the progression in these aids for learning a language. It's quite amazing, even just a little thing like being able to loop parts of that so you can just keep going over it and taking out certain words. I actually thought about learning Korean for fun because I've been there a couple of times in the last couple of years and have plans to go back. I just like the culture there, the city. I mean, Seoul especially is just one of my favourite cities to visit. So something like that is actually very beneficial. And obviously, again, like I just want like that experience of learning a language. Tell me if you're learning any languages. If you have any interest, if you learned any as an adult, how was it to do? What was your challenges? How did you do it?
Link also gets you an exclusive discount once inside. Now, some words don't just name emotions, they actually reveal entire new ways of thinking. And one word which really stopped me in my tracks was aufarbeiten. This really doesn't have an equivalent in English. We might say to process or to work through or to come to terms with. But none of these really quite carry the weight that aufarbeiten does. In German, it's not passive reflection, it's an active moral effort, to look at what's been hidden or denied and to face it fully. You hear it mostly in the context of history, like Vergangenheitsaufarbeitung, the working through of the past, or actually also in this context, another word is Bewältigung, like Vergangenheitsbewältigung. This has become a little bit more antiquated, but there is just so much depth behind this word. It means to wrestle with or to overcome emotionally and morally. Not to forget, but to carry consciously. And so after the war, Germany didn't just rebuild its cities, it rebuilt its memory through education, through public debate, through monuments and literature. And there was this collective effort to not or to never forget. And it can also be found in therapy or personal development, like Ich muss meine Kindheit aufarbeiten. I have to work through my childhood. But work through has many contexts and that are not really specifically related to emotional or cognitive processing. So German gave me a word for what I'd never really thought to do in English, to work through something and to move on, not to tidy it up. And actually the literal translation means to work up. which gives not only the feeling of moving forward, but also of moving upward. And so there's this incredible sense of vast, expansive momentum. And it's that kind of shift that you just can't unsee. You know, the point I'm trying to make is that you don't just learn vocabulary, you inherit a worldview. The language is the vessel for the worldview. And these
that's interesting as well, yeah, for sure. Like that word definitely has more connotations in the German version, but again, like maybe if you're German, you don't really think about that too much, about the deeper meaning, because it's just like in English when we learn words or we speak, we just say the words as we learn them. We don't think too much about the origin or the deeper meaning. But that one, again, when you're German, maybe you're just learning that and you use it in a certain context, but without really appreciating the depth of meaning. But yeah, that, again, like it's a perfect example why it's good to learn other languages, give you appreciation for your own language and how what these words mean, and also for another language, the comparison between two. I think this is quite.
These aren't just sort of interesting trivia,
awesome.
they're emotional categories. You know, once you learn them, you start to feel them. And that's the thing, language shapes attention. If you don't have a word for something, you just often don't notice it. And the moment you learn the word, it's really like reality sharpens into focus. Now, this idea isn't new. Samuel Beckett, the Irish novelist and playwright who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1969, he wrote in French. He said writing in French helped him write without style. And I think what he meant by this was that it forced him to be clear, to strip everything down and to just be more honest. And T.S. Eliot also used multiple languages in his poetry, not to show off, but because some meanings only exist in certain tongues. Language was never just a tool for them. It was a way of accessing different layers of reality. Now, I'm not comparing myself to Eliot or Beckett, but I understand now why they chose to step outside English, because sometimes to see yourself clearly, you have to speak as someone else. Today, I live between two languages. English is still home, but German has carved out its own mental territory, and sometimes the thought I need only exists in German, not because I forgot the English, but just because the shape of it fits better in German. It's a bit of a strange feeling, like living between two windows or two versions of the same world with slightly different lighting. It's disorienting, but also expansive. You know, I didn't learn German to become someone new. I learned it to survive, to live, to make my life better in this country. But in the process, I noticed something deeper happening. My language changed, my thoughts changed, and somewhere along the way, I did as well. There's so much technological change and rapid development of language tools right now. People love to theorize that language learning will be a thing of the past, and that we will just have AI to translate everything for us in real time, which might be true. Practically, it might not be necessary anymore, but I still struggle to see how we can replace the emotional impact of language learning. That process of making mistakes, of being embarrassed or excited when you finally make breakthroughs, the emotional understanding of a foreign concept that only really comes after having learned and heard and experienced it in a multitude of different contexts. I think learning a foreign language is the ultimate self-development tool. There's just nothing quite like it, but that's just me. What about you? Have you learned a foreign language as an adult, and did you enjoy the process, or was it born out of necessity? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you.
That was cool, yeah. So yeah, again, like that does, I feel that for sure. Like I think it's an amazing experience for me. Like it wasn't like I didn't have to learn it in like a certain time or to get by. So I just appreciated everything that I learned, and that made it an easier experience or a more enjoyable experience. Maybe if some people have like a time pressure, they're moving to a country where they have to learn it for their job or something, it might be maybe a bit more stressful and you can't really enjoy it as much. But for me, it was like such just a brilliant experience, and I really appreciate it. It makes me want to learn more different languages, especially something like Korean or something that uses a different like set of words that are not your kind of Roman letters. I think would be interesting as well, see if it kind of develops me even more. But yeah, cool, and it's, yeah, from what I've learned about German, there is so many words that explain situations or that don't have a direct English translation, which makes it very interesting. So tell me what you think about this one in your own experience. Thanks.